Okay, I guess we've lost more. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host for today's broadcast, Insane Layer 13. I guess we are now down to 15 entrants. We started with 18. Looks like we're maybe down to 15 now. The gap at the head of the field between the Chevrolet the gap that AFZ Next has to NWR Arkina, the number we are looking at is 1.2 seconds. Now, obviously, that number could fluctuate a lot based on penalties that will be removed in the coming days or weeks. But preliminarily, the gap between our top two, NWR Arkina and AFZ Next, is 1.2 seconds. If Next can be ahead of Arkina by at least 1.2 seconds, then Next's team will end up the preliminary winner at least, or the unofficial winner. But if Arkina can maintain that gap of 1.2 or open it, then NWR will win irregardless. Freaky Boy is going to be third, and they have roughly a minute over fourth place, which is Joe Kimbo's Huracan. PTG Speed is about a minute and a half behind Freaky Boy right now. So there's about 30 seconds between Joe Kimbo and PTG Speed at the moment. SFM Darkster is going to be farther down in sixth position. Again, it does look like we have slipped down to about a 14 or 15 car field now here for this final stint at Silverstone as we are preparing to get underway for the last run here. Preparing to load on track. Come on. And in this stint, we will see the sun set enough to make the track night, and the cars will likely end up having to turn their lights on near the end as well. So there will be some level of handling change just off of that as well. Also, this is now 56 laps, not 57, so this will technically be the shortest stint of them all. Because you will not have an entire lap under pace speed, you will just have this small, first third of a lap under pace speed. Again, Nex's team is 1.2 seconds behind NWR Arkina's team. The gap has come right down. This is a fight to the very end. Third, fourth, and fifth might be locked up, assuming that there's not bizarre changes in position between them. And we are down to what looks like 15 cars. Yep. Coming to the green flag. Next, caught the NWR driver sleeping in stint 5. Can he do the same thing in stint 6? As they go under the bridge, green flag for the final time tonight at Silverstone. No big moves by Next this time. Arkina does a good job defending right off the bat. But immediately there is firing going on between Joe Kimbo and PTG Speed. And here comes SFM Dark. So he wants to make it 3 wide very early in the event. Makes a little bit of contact with the Lamborghini. And that lets Speed go right up to fourth spot right away. Figgy Boy holds on to third for the moment, just ahead of PTG Speed. Meanwhile, AFC Next runs just behind NWR Arkina. He needs to get ahead and start opening the gap. He looks to the outside, looks to the inside, but will fall back in line behind as they go through Maggots and Beckett's for the first time here in the final stint. Passing over the curbs, and now they're going to shoot onto the longest straightaway. The Chevy has superior straight line speed with the draft. He should be able to make a move if he so chooses. But does he choose to make a move? He puts the bumper to the McLaren, looks to the outside, but is not going to commit to a move. Not this time, not here. Next hangs the rear of the car out just a little bit as they come out of the corner, and he still runs in the tail track of NWR Arkina. Already, apparently, this duo has pulled about a second on third place Figgy Boy, who is being pressured by PTG Speed as well. Bit of a twitch and slide there by Nex as he runs behind Arkina. About 2/5 of a second between Arkina and Nex. Again, Nex has to get ahead and stay ahead of Arkina by 1.2 seconds. Or he could stay right behind Arkina and let Arkina rack up an absolutely obscene amount of penalties, but that has not been the way the NWR team has gone. When they do rack up penalties, it is still nothing compared to what the AFZ team seems to rack up in penalties. Down the next straightaway, and they fire it off. So they've completed a full racing lap now. And now, they've opened up a bit of a gap on Figgy Boy and PTG Speed, so it is just this duo going at it here. Down the old start-finish straightaway. Next hangs out about a quarter of a second behind. This car nice and steady behind him. As he continues to pressure Arkina. Not too much pressure. He's not forcing the nose up in corners, but it doesn't look like it'll fit. Oh, and Arkina made a bit of a mistake going through Maggots and Beckett's, and that brings Next right up and behind his rear wing, but Next backs out. He doesn't want to run to the back of Arkina. And now he'll use the draft as they come onto the longest straightaway once again. Next will defend the inside very aggressively. Arkina Arkina will defend the inside really aggressively. Next just hangs out behind. Gonna have a slightly wider entrance. Has a great run out, though. Puts the nose right under the rear wing of the McLaren. The McLaren's got to defend the inside. The Chevy goes to the outside. Backs off the throttle early. Tries to cross over. The NWR driver is nice and prepared for it, though. Next bounces over the curb back there. SFM Darkster has now gotten his way by PTG Speed. So is Aston Martin on Aston Martin action here as they fire off side by side to turns 1 and 2. For the moment, PTG Speed has it, but Darkster wants it back. Joe Kimbo has slipped back to 6th place on circuit now. Meanwhile, in the front two, gap seems to be slightly opening just a bit. Is Arkina good enough of a driver? Is he comfortable enough with the car to make this work? And again, the other question. The lights are going to go on. Excuse me. The sun is going to go down. The on-track lights are going to turn on. And the track temperature will cool off. How will the car's handling change going from day to night? Will it benefit the McLaren or will it benefit the Chevrolet? Next is content to run right underneath Arkina's rear wing for the moment, as these two have gradually been opening up the gap on the rest of the field. Again, it looks like Arkina may have taken a little bit too much speed through there, but Nex is not pushing the issue too much, but he's got a great run coming out of Beckett's. He's right underneath the rear wing. He's looking to the outside. Can he out-drag the McLaren? He's got the power. He's going to pull up there in a dead heat. Who breaks first? It will be Nex who breaks a little bit early. Arkina goes wide, very wide. Nex forces his nose there, but gets himself sideways in the process. It seems like Arkina may just be a step better than what Nex was expecting. Every move that Nex is pulling off, Arkina has an answer to, and while it may not be the perfect answer, it is enough of an answer that is keeping Nex behind for the moment. Figgy Boy holds on to 3rd spot right now as SFM Darkster and PTG Speed continue to go back and forth. Aston on Aston action for 4th place. But this fight here for the lead of this race is also for the win of the overall event. A little bit of contact coming out of turn 3. Next should have a great toe down the straight this time. How aggressively does Arkina try to defend? Not too aggressively. He's willing to hold the normal line. Both of them put their tires on that outside curb, so they're very happy with how their cars are handling right now if they're willing to put those outside tires on that curb like that. Coming down to Maggots and Beckett's again. Ooh, that Chevy was wide, maybe a little bit too wide. He's still there behind Arkina, does not seem to have a way to get alongside in an area that would actually benefit him. They both go deep going into the chicane, so it doesn't really benefit either of them that time, which means that Arkina holds station. Gap now opens briefly, more than half a second. Now starts closing back down rapidly. Arkina trying to hold the more conventional line. Next is trying to do the more erratic lines, trying to get the best runs out of these corners to try and maximize straight line speed, maximize the advantage of the draft as well. Not close enough to make a move, not this time at least. Around the big 180 sweeper. Seems like the McLaren, nice and confident. Oh, and the Chevy drops a tire into the dirt. Big twitch and slide. That might have killed it. That might have been race over. Gap rapidly opening up now. Over half a second. SFM Darkster has worked his way by Figgy Boy as well. But again, this is the main focus, this fight for the lead. Nexus pulled the gap back down to about a little less than a quarter of a second. Looks to the outside this time, commits to the outside very early this time. Now looks to the inside line's open, is that gonna be enough? Arkina brakes very late, very early. Next brakes late. Crossover on exit, but the McLaren is sideways! And Next is by! Alright, we're gonna ride on board with Arkina for a flying lap here, as we are required to take an ad break. Thank you, Twitch. But we are gonna ride on board with Arkina for a flying lap as he tries to get back by Next here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Silverstone here, as AFZ Next and NWR Arkina wage a spirited war, not just for the stint victory, but for the overall event victory. SFM Darkster has worked his way up to third, just ahead of Figgy Boy Lulba. PTG Speed has slipped back to 6th, Joe Kimbo back to 7th. And something has happened to Nex. Nex has fallen behind. Nex went off wide, coming onto the straightaway. And the gap opens up significantly in Arkina's favor all of a sudden. Nex had done everything right and then shoots off circuit and loses a huge chunk of time in the process. And I think he's already fallen out of drafting range. This could end up being a bit of a problem for the Chevrolet. And the lights come on as the sun is setting here. This is the wild card. How much different are these cars going to handle? Are the McLarens, or is it going to handle better in the night, or is it going to be the Chevy that handles better at night? As Nex tries to desperately close that gap back down between himself and Arkina. He needs to finish ahead of Arkina by 1.2 seconds or more. And while he got by the McLaren with a fantastic move earlier, a bit of a hiccup and a mistake coming out of turns 5 and 6 has shunted him back behind Arkina once again. And Arkina will be ready. He'll know the move that Nex will try and pull now. And now that this is a 56 lap event instead of 57, you can easily make this on 3 stops with each stint being 14 laps exactly. You do not need to do anything crazy on pit stop strategies. Well, Nex seems to be able to close back down a bit on Arkina right now, but again, one of the big things is that the Chevy has burnt up its tires, and while it didn't happen on Nex's most prior stint, this car does seem to bleed time a lot worse as the tires go away. It bleeds time a lot worse once the tires goes away. But if he can stay in the draft of Arkina, he might still be able to make something of this. Very nearly hits the dirt there again. Lulba in the Audi has moved his way back up in the fifth position as Figgy Boy gets back by him again. ETG Speed has slipped back to 6th. Joe Kimbo slipped back to 7th. So yeah, it does seem like Figgy Boy's team, the boys, McLaren, are setting up for a 3rd place result here overall. Oh, Nex gets right into Arkina's rear. Well, he's definitely there. He's definitely put the pressure back on. All the time he's lost earlier, he's made it back up. But now he has to figure out a way by. And Arkina is not going to give him that 3/4 of an inside lane that Nex needed earlier. Nex is going to have to find a different way by this McLaren. And with this being a simple 56 lap race where everyone would pit every 14 laps, he's not going to get it on pit stops. He's going to have to do it on track somehow. Looks to the outside. Not a great corner to go the outside by, but he's going to try to cross over. Go side by side to turn 4 so he can have a nice crossover coming out of 4. Try to be side by side with him in turn 5. Deny the McLaren the ideal lane. And yeah, Arkina's wide, and here comes Nex. Drag race once again. Now this time Arkina's on the outside. Will have the ability to get to a slightly higher power level, but Nex has the ideal lane going into the following corner. And Nex is back by Arkina. But again, being ahead of Arkina is one thing. He needs to be 1.2 seconds ahead of Arkina by the end of this. They can't keep fighting nose to tail like this. He needs to open up a gap on the NWR car. Into Maggots and Beckett's again. Nex needs to be careful not to overcook it through here, like he almost did, and give Arkina a chance to immediately close back in. Gap seems to open up just a bit there to about half a second, but now with the draft, Arkina will use that to start closing the gap back down again. Looks like most of the positions farther back have semi-stabilized for the moment. Although PTG Speed and Ferrari are close enough to give each other some headaches. But this is the fight for the overall win, not just of this stint, but of the event overall. As they come out of the final corner and across the line, the gap is about half a second, although it closes a bit down the straights because Arkina has gained the draft. All right. Next needs to be careful. These are the corners where he had that big twitch and lost the lead earlier. Does not want to have that happen again. Nice and smooth. Maintaining about 0.4 of a second over Arkina. That will drop down to about 0.3 under braking. And now they come out of the 180 and onto the old start-finish straight again. Next one a little bit wide there. He's going to have to hope that that doesn't turn into a penalty against him. Because again, penalties will come into play. Now they accelerate off down the straight again. Next, defends the inside for a bit, but he's going to move wide. He wants to have the more traditional racing line. He's not too worried about Arkina throwing up a gigantic dive, it seems. This time it's Arkina who's wide. Again, the McLaren has the ability to really close up under braking, it seems. As they come across the stripe, it's going to be about 1/3 of a second between the two of them, or less than 1/3. 1, 2, 3, and 4 again. Again, we're anticipating that everyone will be pitting on lap 14. Not really any good justification to not pit lap 14, lap 28, lap 42. Now the gap's over half a second, although the draft will let Arkina start to close that down. He'll really close it down aggressively under braking here. Real quickly, let's go ahead and look at the tire life of our top two. 39.9, about 40% for next for Arkina. 40.8. So next is pushing a bit of a tire life advantage over NWR Arkina at this stage of the event. It's not a massive one, but any advantage will help next in his fight to try and retake the event lead. Next drives a little bit aggressively just to try and break the draft of Arkina. Try to keep Arkina from closing time back down in the straightaway. These two do seem to be relatively evenly matched right now, though. I do think Next might be very slightly faster, but when I say very slightly, I'm talking by maybe 100th or 2 or 300ths of a second a lap faster. This may just come down to who is better in the tire life, and also, once they finally start catching traffic, who is going to be better at traffic management. Half a second. This duo is 6.5 seconds ahead of SFM Darkser, so they can get a little bit punchy with each other if necessary. They don't have to worry about losing the lead of the stint right now. Back to 1/3 of a second now. Arkina plants that car right on the curbs on the left side through there, trying to cut the track as much as he can, while Nex is taking a little bit wider entry and just kind of more smoothly rolling through those corners. A fifth of a second gap between them now. Now even less than that. Arkina has a run. Does he try to go to the inside? He actually backed out a bit under braking just so he didn't run to the back of Nex. Into Maggots and Beckett's again. Here comes Arkina. He's close enough. Can he make a big dive? He brakes late, tries to close the gap in. Doesn't get alongside, but he's right underneath the Chevy's rear wing. Does he go for a big dive coming into the chicane? No. But Nex did miss the ideal line, missed the apex for 2 corners in a row in the chicane. Arkina is right there. Seems to me like the momentum is swinging back in the favor of the McLaren. Through the most frustrating corners on track once again. And now they power out of turn 5 onto the straight. About a third of a second and closing. But still, Nex, relatively reserved, relatively calm, not taking any wild lines. He's just holding his own. Arkina seems to be a little bit more desperate, going for a little bit more bullish lanes, but the thing is that Arkina has the advantage of draft. He can afford to make a very small mistake, lose a tenth or maybe even a tenth and a half, and the draft will let him close that all back down. Within a quarter of a second. Run down back to Maggots and Beckett's. That's SFM Darkster trying to stay ahead of Lalba in the Audi. But our main focus is the fight for the lead here. Nex defends the inside. Arkina shoots wide to the outside. Nex goes wide. Arkina's going to try the crossover. Can he make it stick? He did! Side by side as they come down to the final chicane. Who goes deeper under braking? And it's Arkina! And Arkina is back by Nex! We're anticipating most of the field will come into the pits at the end of this lap. But it looks like Arkina has gotten back by Nex. Looking at the tires between the two of them again. 51.3% for the McLaren. For Nex, 50.6%. But he's got engine damage. Oh, if Nex has engine damage, that would explain a lot. That means he'll end up losing a little bit of time down the straights, but also he's going to lose a bit of time repairing that in the pits. However, that also means that he'll likely be a little bit faster than Arkina again once they come out of pit lane. Lalba has gotten to the inside of Darkster. Side by side, Audi versus Aston Martin. And for the moment, Darkster has it, but Lalba really is putting the screws to Darkster right now. Now he looks to the inside. Not willing to commit. Nose to tail. I don't imagine we'll see a big move by the Audi through here. We turn our focus back to the leaders once again. If Nex can get to the inside of Arkina, going into the braking zone here, he can deny Arkina an ideal line into the pits and compromise him. But I don't know if that's something Nex is going to consider trying to do. No, Nex is going to take a more ideal, normal line, just content to run behind the McLaren. Now again, when these two come out of the pits, McLaren... Oh, they both stay out another lap! Huh! Well, I didn't see that coming. But Darkster will pit. Lulba stays out. Figgy Boy pits. But this duo will stay out just a little bit longer. Interesting choice. Next continues to run in Arkina's tire tracks. Now it feels like the momentum has gone back a little bit, a very small amount to the Chevy. The big problem, again, is that the Chevy has a little bit of engine damage, which really hurts its one big strength it has. Its top end. It just does not have that same amount of top end now, even in the draft. Both of them very nearly went off there. Onto the old start-finish straight again. Frustrating thing for Darkser is that he has ended up in the middle of traffic. He is just a little bit ahead of DMS Sleepy and not too far behind Les Wick right now, who is in that Lamborghini, who is trying to fight his way up through the grid. So as it stands right now, this pitting at the ideal time may not have worked out for Darkser just because of the traffic he is now surrounded by. Out of Maggots and Beckett's again. And down the longest straight. Nex immediately looks to the outside. Arkina is going to drift over into the natural line. Nex now looks to the inside. He's going to shoot to the inside. Try to deny the inside. No. He broke late, but not too late. He still runs right behind the McLaren. They're both going to come in this time. Yes, they're going to come in this time. Again, we anticipate that the McLaren is going to end up with a bit of an advantage over Nex, because Nex will have to repair damage to the car in the pits, which will cause his pit stop to be just a little bit longer. Okay, let's see where Darkster is going to be in relation to Lulba here. As Darkster tries to look to the inside of Les Wick now. Big send. That is a Herculean send. And he's through. NFL Racer stays out for another lap. I have to wonder if NFL Racer might try and do a two-stop. It would be an absolutely atrociously stupid idea, but maybe he is thinking something can work, which everyone else knows will not. Oh my God, are you serious? NFL Racer all of a sudden is your leader, and he is going to be the wild card in this because he's on old tires. Doesn't have a lot of fuel in the car, so he'll be a little bit quicker and nimbler out of the corners, but he is on old tires. Darkster's in that back ahead of Lulba by about 6/10, but he is on old tires, and Arkina and Nex behind him are going to be on fresh tires. So Arkina is going to have to figure out a way by NFL Racer and figure out a way to do it without hemorrhaging too much time to Nex here. A little bit of contact. The Merc holding the ideal line. Arkina really being held up by NFL right now, but is trying to use the draft to also maybe try and outrun Nex. Try to get away from Nex, so Nex can't get the draft off him. Bit of a slide there by the McLaren. Does the McLaren go for a big move on the Mercedes, going to Maggots and Beckett's? Pulls up alongside. Doesn't get a chance. Sends the car over the top of the red sausage curbs. And Nex, who backed off a little bit, is going to have a little bit cleaner run through Maggots and Beckett's. And now here comes Arkina. Arkina's going to try and go the long way around NFL. NFL wants him to move over a bit so he has a little bit more room. Ooh, Arkina's wide. NFL's now in the way of Nex, and he'll yank it off the circuit at the last possible moment. So that little thing is over. And Arkina has an advantage over Nex now. Is it enough to break the draft? It may be enough to break the draft. If Arkina breaks the draft on Nex, and that likely is it, that will likely be fight over. All right, we're going to go ahead. For last time, we are going to ride on board for a flying lap with the Lamborghini, the white Lamborghini of Les Wick that won 3 of the first 4 stints today. We're going to ride on board with him for a lap here around Silverstone. That was a full lap on board with Les Wick. Next is Cotton Arkina again. Again, Next needs to win by 1.2 seconds or more over Arkina to pull off the overall victory. If these two keep fighting like this, there's no way for Next to actually make that happen. And Next sliding off into the dirt is not going to help with that in the slightest. Well, he's out of draft range now. That might be fight over. Let's look real quickly at the fight for third on track between the Hatsune Miku car and the breast cancer awareness car, as Hatsune Miku really is sick and tired of being reminded of the existence of breast cancer. They do not want to be aware of it anymore. Our top four are way off in their own zone. They get into, it's not really a glut, but it's kind of like a prolonged train of cars from about 5th to 9th. About 5 guys all on top of each other there. And that's a little ways back till you get to Leswick and Landhughes. And then you have Sleeping Nico, Warrior Knight, and Harry Twos. Oh, that was bold by Darkstar. Is he able to make it stick? He is able to make it stick. He gets to the inside of the Audi, but can't hold it there. And the Audi takes third back. Oh no, and SFM Darkser is the one who lags out. And Lolba now hangs out in third place with no issue whatsoever. We're going to reach out to SFM Darkser, see if he has anything to say, but fighting for third position, fighting for another podium, and suddenly it's derailed. We'll reach out to Darkster, see if he has anything he wants to say, but that's going to have to be one of the most frustrating things he'll have to deal with. All right, and coming into the party right now is SFM Darkser. Darkser, if you can hear me, go ahead and include your audio. What happened?
I went to take a game clip, and then my game froze with the constant engine note audio and no video update, and then they told me that my driver was no longer in the game. So that was that.
Frustrating scenario because it looked like you were on track for another top 3 result, and now this is going to take out any chance that you had of putting your team in the top 5 here in the silver lobby.
Yeah, probably. I did some math, and I would have had to beat PTG's speed by 1 minute and 32 seconds, which I think that was actually going to happen based on how the race was starting to go, but these things happen. It's just one of them racing deals.
Yeah, frustrating circumstances. I do want to ask, though, the fight at the head of this field, it is 1.2 seconds that NWR Arkina has over AFC Next coming into this. 1.2 seconds. These two drivers have been unable to get away from each other since the word green. Between these two, who do you think has the best chance of winning this event?
So when I did stage 3, Arkina was the class of the field. We were able to keep up with him at the first part, but then as the stint started to go on and the track matured, he just was able to extend that lead gradually a little bit each lap. So just based on that and not really having raced next at all, I am going to go with Arkina.
All right, well, your chips are placed down. We'll see in about probably an hour and a half if they were the right gamble to make, but I appreciate your feedback.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been a good race so far, and I got to say, having been somebody who probably has organized the most of these endurance races of anyone, it is hard. So I will credit BER for giving this another try. They seem to be doing a pretty good job so far. So I'm hoping that the last stint, or stage rather, goes well, and that they can have a good feeling coming out of this event.
All right, you should probably go ahead and get to sleep, mate, because this event, which is supposed to be a 12-hour enduro, has gone on for something closer to about 13 hours. You should probably go ahead and get some sleep and try to fix your sleep schedule after all this is over. Thanks for jumping in and talking with us, mate.
Catch you later, Insane.
All right. So we set our focus once again to the leaders, NWR Arkina and AFZ Next. Real quickly, let's look at the penalties at this stage of the event. Well, this is just going to make things a little bit harder for Next. Both of these drivers have penalties, but Next has a half second more penalty than Arkina. So that means that right now, Next has to be ahead of Arkina by 1.7 seconds at this stage of the event. So it's getting harder, but it's still very much in the realm of possibility. If Arkina ends up with a bit of engine damage, I don't even think it would have to be alive. If it was just 1% engine damage on Arkina, I think Next could start really putting the screws to him and maybe opening the gap up a bit. Well, now it's up to 0.7, actually. Arkina, 1.9. Next, 1.2. So now all of a sudden, Next is the one with the penalty advantage. So now it went from 1.2 down to 0.5. So now Next only has to be half a second ahead of Arkina. So the turns continue the table here at Silverstone. Also, same when it comes to penalties, is some of the best that Chevy team has had. Typically, they have had more time penalties than anyone else throughout the majority of the event, but now they are legitimately closing it down a bit. They're getting a little bit better off when it comes to the penalties right now. Runs up right behind Arkina. If Next can make Arkina get a ridiculous amount of penalties here, Next might be able to win this on penalty countback, but forcing a driver ahead to get a bunch of penalties is easier said than done. Drivers who are alongside of you or behind you, making them get penalties is a lot more within the realm of easy possibility, but making the driver ahead of you get penalties, that's a lot tougher of a cookie to make crumble. still, for the moment at least, Nex does seem to be doing everything right. He just needs to be able to get by this McLaren. Gap opened up quite a bit there. One thing that could help Nex out, if he doesn't get engine damage on this run on the tires, he would have a slightly shorter pit stop, could end up right behind the McLaren as they come out of pit lane, assuming they both pit at the same lap again. Figgy Boy has stabilized in 4th position on track, which more than likely will guarantee him and the boys McLaren team a 3rd place overall. PTT Speed seems to have just gotten by Ferrari and Figgly Boy. So something's gone wrong here that has suddenly put Speed up to 4th, as Figgy and Ferrari are having a bit of a spat at it now. McLaren on McLaren action, and that is NFL Racer in the Merc just a little bit behind them. Again, PTG Speed trying to set himself up. He needs to be about half of a minute ahead of Yokimbo by the end of this event if he wants to pull off 4th overall. But with Yokimbo running only about 2 seconds behind Speed, that just does not look like it's going to happen right now. He needs something to go terribly wrong for Yokimbo at the moment. That's Figgy, who gets really aggressive there with Speed, forced himself alongside that 666 machine. Oh, there's not going to be a lot of room on the track there. One of them went off circuit. There were 4 wide they went down the straight there. Well, that's one advantage of taking out walls. That would have been an accident if there were walls there. So Figgy now in 4th, Speed in 5th now. 5 cars all on top of each other. Something nasty. For a moment, Figgy's got it, but Speed runs right behind, followed by Ferrari, Yokimbo, and NFL Racer. Mind you, NFL has the freshest tires out of everyone in this little pack of cars here. You almost can't tell what's going on ahead of you. All these guys are so on top of each other, and the lights are so bright. All right, NFL looks to the outside of Yokimbo, now tries to do the inside. Yokimbo gets a little bit of oversteer on exit, but keeps NFL behind for the moment. NFL's going to go deep under braking, though, going into the chicane. Cannot parlay that into an actual move, though. Now this group of 5 seems to have singled out a bit into something a little bit closer to single file order. Speed runs right behind Figgy Boy for the moment, though. Looks to the inside. Figgy has a little bit of engine damage right now. Not a tremendous amount, but will make it harder for him to get away from these drivers behind. Because he'll be giving them the draft and he won't be able to hit his actual top speed. Meanwhile, at the front, just about nose to tail between Arkina and Nex still. Let's go ahead, and before we start our lap, before we do our first round of stops, let's go ahead and ride on board for a lap on board with PTG Speed here. I'm assuming that all these drivers are going to stay out this lap. Yeah, we're going to ride on board for a lap with PTG Speed in the middle of this cluster muck. So you can get an idea on what it's like being in the middle of this crazy fight for position here at Silverstone. And that's a lap right in the middle of the mess there with PTG Speed in the Aston as he muscles his way by Figgy Boy and puts himself back into the 4th position now. Arkina still leads over Nex, but it is still just about nose to tail between the two of them. I really wanted to take a look at this massive mess of cars, about 5 of them, from 4th back to about 8th, as they all just keep going back and forth for position. Meanwhile, back at the front of the field, Nex continues to run behind Arkina. We look at the penalties right now. Nex still has the advantage, 0.7. He was 1.2 behind, so right now he would have to win. If they kept their penalties as they are now, Nex would have to win by half a second. Oh, here comes a move to the inside! He's going for the move to the inside! He's not going to push the issue too much, but he is very clearly making it obvious that, hey, I am here and I am not done with you yet. He is trying to tire Arkina out. He's going to take the long way around going into the chicane. Can't keep it along with him, though. It's better than doing nothing, I would argue, but that move is actually going to open the gap up in Arkina's favor for the moment. Now NFL racer muscles by Ferrari farther back there. Again, remember, NFL has tires fresher than everyone else in this giant glut of cars, and Speed falls back to 8th in this mess now. No damage to the car. He may have just said, I can't take this anymore. Or maybe he just got freight trained on the extreme outside in the final corner. But he goes from being about 4th to 8th, although he'll muscle his way back by Joe Kimbo and get right back up to 7th. Put the bumper to Ferrari. Ferrari puts the power down. Now Allen has to move up. Speed has to move over, put the block on Joe Kimbo. He's got a run on the McLaren now. Does he go for the lunge? No, he's not. He's going to hold back for the moment. But Joe Kimbo tried to go for a lunge behind. NFL racer now up to 5th. Again, he has fresher tires than everyone else here, as he is putting the pressure on Figgy Boy now for what would be 4th on track. Here comes Ferrari, and he'll pass NFL in a straight line before they even get to Maggots and Beckett's. No damage to NFL's engine or anything. I wonder why he was so much slower. But now he's up to being attacked by PTG Speed again. He's going to try and use a draft off of Ferrari to defend against Speed. While Ferrari going to try... Oh, wow, that was really brave under brakes. He closed in the apex, but he's going to lose a lot of it on the run out. And Joe Kimbo says, I've had enough. He's going to duck in. So he is committing to paying once every 14 laps. All of these drivers are going a little bit longer on their tires, though. I am curious if this works out in Joe Kimbo's favor, because if he ends up in clean air, which I think he will, this could be fantastic for him. He could turn a few laps in clean air, while these four all continue to have their own little knife fight going on. Ooh, Speed. I don't know what in the world that move was, but that was never going to work. Very erratic driving amongst these four. 4 different cars on track now in this group. Mainly just because, yeah, we have a McLaren. No, it's 3 different cars amongst 4 of them. Technically 4 different cars amongst 5, back when Joe Kimbo's in the middle of it. Because, yeah, Ferrari and Figgy are both in the McLarens. So Figgy Boy and Ferrari pit this time, but NFL Racer and PTG Speed will both stay out a little bit longer. So I'm very interested to see how that turns out. Let's see where Joe Kimbo ends up in relation to the drivers he was fighting with, considering that he has had a lap in completely clean air. So clear Landshaws and Leswick without issue. We are not surprised at that. It's Figgy Boy and Ferrari who is just ahead of him. Where is he going to be in relation to the two of them? He's not really closed the gap down by any significant amount, it would appear. He's still there in their zip code, but he has not closed down on him. So the undercut just does not seem to be working right now, which is going to be frustration for Kimbo, but could end up being big news for NFL racer who is going for massive overcuts. Do our leaders pit this lap? No, they stay out again. Lulba pits out third position now. The fight for the lead continues to be the same as it has been most of the day. Arkina does seem to have the advantage over Nex. Nex has gotten by Arkina a few times, but he has not been able to stay ahead of Arkina for prolonged periods of time. Still, Nex has been a little bit better on tire life. He's at 55% right now, while Arkina is currently at 56%. It's not a massive difference, but it is significant in its own right. The other thing to consider is that Nex is running a very heavy fuel load. I imagine it is so that way he has some weight on the rear of the car and it keeps the car a little bit more stable. Arkina, on the other hoof, has been running a very light fuel load, which gives him a significant advantage mid-corner and on acceleration. Ooh, the Chevy is looking there. Nex was thinking of going side by side. Didn't commit to it, but he sure thought of it. Nex is there. Nex is going to have a good run out right behind the McLaren. Already he looks to the outside. Now he looks to the inside. Arkina's defending the inside. Nex looks wide. Now Arkina moves over at the last possible moment. No big move there. They're both going to come in this time. All right, so we'll see. We see that PTG Speed is ahead of Ferrari, Yokimbo, and Figgy. So the overcut definitely is working out very strong right now. So NFL, who is going to be pitting much, much later, will likely be way ahead of this little group. Meanwhile, between Nex and Arkina, the gap seems to open up very slightly in Arkina's favor. It's probably taking them slightly less time to put fuel in that car for whatever reason. But now the Chevy has fresh tires, which is typically when it is at its strongest earlier in the run. And Arkina's McLaren seems to come on a little bit stronger near the end of the run. Onto the straight again. Next should be close enough to use the draft to start closing the gap back down between the two of them. Once more, we look here. Speed has finally opened up a bit of a gap on Ferrari, and Ferrari has also opened up a very small gap on Yokimbo. Yokimbo is just barely ahead of Figgy Boy. NFL race is going to be kind of the wild card because he is going for a massive overcut. When he pits, where is he going to end up in relation to those four? Because if he's right in the middle of it, he'll kick the draft back on and they'll all close right on top of each other all over again. He can probably do this lap and one more if he so chooses. I would imagine it would be smarter for him to pit this time. 25 laps as it would come out, so it would be a 13 lap stint, a 12 lap stint, but it's kind of hard to tell what his strategy actually is going to be. Meanwhile, at the head, look at this! Nex has gotten back by Arkina! It is not over yet. Nex back ahead of the McLaren. While Arkina has been ahead of Nex for the majority of the event thus far, this is not the first time we have seen Nex ahead of Arkina. NFL racer pits now. Onto the straight. Next should be able to get the gap open a bit here. But again, draft will help Arkina out, but Nex's biggest power is straight line speed. All right, where his NFL racer ended up after pit stops. He comes out of the pits. Where's PTG Speed? Way back there. Speed actually went off circuit there in turns 1 and 2. As going to fall back behind Ferrari. So Ferrari now back up to 5th. And NFL Racer is now 3 seconds ahead of those drivers. I think NFL Racer's strat may have worked out. He may have broken away from this rest of the group for now at least. Meanwhile, back at the leaders. That gap has opened up a bit this time by. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a Twitch-mandated ad break as we ride on board with Arkina as he tries to close the gap back down between himself and AFZ Next. It is between these two for not just a stint win, but for the overall victory for the silver tier here at VER's 2,000 kilometers of Silverstone. We'll be back. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Silverstone. Next and Arkina are back to being dead even on penalties. So we are back to the same scenario as before. Next has to beat Arkina on track by 1.2 seconds or more for the AFZ team to take victory. Now, if Arkina ends up with more time penalties and Next ends up with fewer, then the situation becomes a little bit easier for Next. The thing is that the draft is so strong that while Nex is able, I do think that Nex has moments, not the entire time, but he has moments. He is faster than Arkina. The draft is so strong that he can't get away from Arkina. And the same thing goes the other way. I feel like there are significant chunks of this race where Arkina is faster, but because of the way the draft works out, he just can't complete the move. Side by side, through a pair of corners through there, for the moment, Nex has it. Arkina tries to go the long way, the wide way around. Side by side as they go down the old start-finish straight. Someone has to back out in this corner. Who's it going to be? It will be Nex, won't it? No! Nex goes in deep. Arkina's going to slide the rear end out a bit. Nex holds station. And Arkina stays right behind him. Now into Maggots and Beckett's again. Ooh, Arkina had a bit of a hiccup, a bit of a mistake through there that time. Should still be close enough to get a draft, though, off the Chevy ahead to negate some of the time loss. That's kind of the big thing. Even when one of these drivers make a mistake, the draft is so powerful that if you make a mistake while you're second, but you can just sniff the draft, you can almost completely annihilate small mistakes between you and the other driver. Now, if Nex is able to break the gap and get open to about a second over Arkina, then we have a real race on. A different kind of race, to be fair. We're anticipating the next round of stops will be in about 8 to 11 laps here. As we are past the halfway point. About the 2/3 point of the event right now. Lalba continues to run in third place. Had been fine for a prolonged period of time with SFM Darkser before Darkser had an unfortunate disconnect. Darkser was fine for a top 5 result overall out of everyone here in the silver lobby, but that disconnect has shunted him out of that fight. So with that in mind, we're likely going to see Joe Kimbo's team lock up 4th. We'll see Figgy Boy's team lock up 3rd, and PTG Speed's team lock up 5th in the event. The fight is really just for the win between these two right now. Into the final chicane again. For some reason, the ticker has stopped trying to update what the exact distance is between first and second on track. So we just can only kind of thumb our eye and try to guess, but it is definitely closer than 1.2 seconds. Probably something closer to about 0.6. 21 laps left here at Silverstone in the final stint. 2,000 kilometers of racing, and it's all coming down to this in the silver category. Next needs to figure out a way to be 1.2 seconds ahead of Arkina by the end of this. Again, distance penalties will come in, and that will likely upend things a little bit between them. And we won't really know how the final results will be until probably Sunday, Monday, or even as late as Tuesday, depending on how long it takes to sort through the penalties. Also, that is RBR Nico, who is in 14th that this duo is about to catch. They will be the first driver to go a lap down, so it may be that lap traffic will have an outsized impact here on how this fight goes. As you see, lap traffic and Nico, we're about to be lap traffic, leading our top 2 drivers into Maggots and Beckett's. And it looks like Nico pulled over coming out of Maggots and Beckett, so he will not have any significant impact on the duo's fight. Technically, there is some level of impact. He kind of gave Nex a bit of a toe into Maggots and held him up a bit coming out of Beckett's, but it's not really going to be enough, I feel. I think these two would be roughly where they are, even if that traffic wasn't there. They're dead even on penalties for now. So again, Nex needs to figure out how to be 1.2 seconds ahead of Arkina. Again, this will not update the gap between the two of them. It looks like it's hanging out between about the 0.3 to 0.7 second range, but it has refused to update the gap between these two for the last few laps. But basically, if Nex can break the draft from Arkina, he may have a shot, but easier said than done. It does still seem like the Chevy is stronger on the fresher tires, but as the tires fall off, Arkina becomes a little bit stronger here. That said, I feel like these are the most consecutive laps that we have seen Nex leading here. This is the longest period of time we have seen Arkina running behind Nex on the circuit. Still, both drivers are roughly doing everything they need to, coming down side by side, going into Maggots and Beckett's, and Arkina clips them. And he gets them. And now Nex is going to try and cross over. Can't make it stick. What happened to cause Nex to back out so much? There's no damage to the car. No damage to the engine. But all of a sudden, Nex pulled out and let Arkina just go for it. I can't fathom why you would just let the McLaren shoot by like that. But Arkina goes back to the lead again. Now the gap at least updates. It says it's half a second between the top two now. Also, Loba has closed within 8 seconds of the leader. I don't think Loba has any serious shot of fighting for the win for this stint against these two. If he did show up, that would definitely make things a lot more interesting, but I don't think that's going to happen. And also, that nasty night fight that had been going on from 4th to 9th has all finally dissipated. Some pretty significant gaps have opened up between most of the drivers in that group now. And it does look like NFL Racer's turn is going to end up on top, as he has been pushing that tire overcut advantage very hard, and it really seems to be working out for him here. These two are still even on penalties right now. Next looking, but is not willing to commit to going side by side through Maggots and Beckett's. It's very obvious he is not willing to do that. He's got a good, well, not a good run, but a respectable run out now. Arkina defends the inside. Now naturally drifts over to the ideal racing line. Does Nex send it? Well, Nex is going to have a wider lane, trying to maintain more speed through the corner. He'll end up right behind the rear wing. Looks to the outside, but he'll still back out early. Arkina hit the sausage curb, slides a little bit, but not enough to take him off the ideal racing line, so he holds station over Nex for now. $18 laps to go. Next goes looking for the alternate lane, while Arkina has the more traditional racing line. Down the straight again. Gap from first to third goes back up to about 8 seconds. And Ferrari drops out. One of our drivers who are fighting for a top 5 result, and Ferrari suddenly lags out. That'll be our second lag out of this stint. Frustration. So that will promote PTT Speed back into the 5th spot for now. 5th on track. likely to bring that team home 5th overall of everyone here in the silver category. Next has a good draft, a good run on Arkina this time. Does he go for the move to the inside? No, he breaks early. He goes a little bit wider into the corner because he's trying to maintain a little bit more consistent speed through there. Use that to stay right behind. Does he go for the dive here? No, he does not go for the dive. Oh, but Arkina missed the corner. They made a little bit of contact, backed each other up a bit. Didn't really change anything, but Arkina shows that despite all things, he is most definitely human, most definitely vulnerable to making mistakes. As a strange move next to pull out of the draft like that. Don't know why you would do that. Arkina may have took the little bit too much speed into Maggots and Beckett's. It's given Nex a fantastic run out. But again, Nex has been hesitant to make moves. Is he going to try and go for a move this time, though? Oh, here it comes. He dives to the inside. Makes contact, pushes the McLaren a bit, but cannot stay alongside him. We're going right on board for a lap here and knock out a Twitch-mandated ad break. We'll be back momentarily at Silverstone. By God, he did it! He got him in Maggots and Beckett's! He outdueled him going into Maggots and Beckett's! I'll be a monkey's uncle! I didn't think he would do it! Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Silverstone. I hope you saw that. I hope the ad ended in time for you to see that. But the two of them went side by side into Maggots and Beckett's. They both made contact, and in the end, it was Nex who ended up ahead. of Arkina. They're still even on penalties. So for next, the goal is still the same. Finish 1.2 seconds ahead of Arkina somehow at the end of this. That means that somehow he needs to cause Arkina to lose the draft so he can just try to open up and run away from it. Run away from him. But this is the latest in a tire stint that we have seen Nex be over Arkina on track. Typically, late in these tire stints, Arkina's the one ahead of Nex, and Nex is barely holding on. This is the first time it's gone the other way, where Nex is the one ahead late in the tire stints. So I imagine we'll see Jokimbo pitting this lap. But for everyone else, we'll likely see them pitting anywhere from 1 to 4 laps later. As we are about to start the final round of pit stops here. Next, defending the inside line. Arkina is close enough to make a lunge if he wants to, but Arkina's going to try and go the long way around, gets his tires on the curb. He's all sorts of sideways through there. And Nex is saying, I'm pitting now. But Arkina wants to stay out. Okay, so this is going to be where things get interesting. Nex says, I'll pit now. I'll take the hit in tires later because I can pit now and not to deal with too much tire fall off. Arkina, though, is going to be running on more worn tires now, but less worn tires later. Also, Arkina is running down on lap traffic in the form of Harry Toofs. Arkina, while Nex pitting now, he may not be. Again, Nex is going to end up in basically near completely clean air. The only driver he may have to worry about would be lap traffic in the form of RBR Nico. But this also means that Arkina will have no draft and Nex will have no draft. So this is going to get really interesting really fast. The undercut has not been the winning strategy most of the night. The overcut has been the winning strategy for most of the night. But maybe things are going to change now. It was very obvious that Nex and Arkina do not have what it takes to break the gap between them. As long as the two are right on top of each other, Arkina and his team would win the event overall by default. So Nex, hoping that running a few laps in clean air will get him well ahead of Arkina. He needs to be 1.2 seconds ahead or more by the end of this. We don't know how much longer Arkina is going to stay out, though. Is it only going to be 1 lap? Will it be 2, 3 laps? He's got the fuel to do this lap and another lap afterwards, easily. Tires will be hurting a bit, but he has the fuel for it. So right now, Nex is taking advantage of completely clean air. No one else on track with him right now. Arkina does not have that advantage. Does he pit this time? No, Arkina's going to stay out for 2 laps longer. All right. Loba will pit out of second spot now. NFL Racer seems to have stabilized into the 4th position for now. PTG Speed in 5th. Jokimbo has already made his final stop, so he is currently about 30 seconds behind Speed. But that gap will close very quickly once Speed makes his stop. That gap, as it is right now, is about where it would need to be for Speed to have a serious shot for his team to overtake Jokimbo's team. But that's just not going to happen because, again, Speed has to make one more stop here. Jokimbo has made what should be his final stop. Next is 24 seconds behind Arkina right now. I feel like the undercut is not a winning move, but the problem for Nex and Arkina is that if they kept staying on top of each other like they were, there was no winning for Nex. They spent 42 laps on top of each other the entire time and could not break the draft away from each other. You have to try something, even if it's a losing move. It's better... In real life, it's not this way, but in racing, it's better to try a losing move to break a stalemate than to be stuck in an endless stalemate. Real life is not that way. But in racing, that's how it is. But Nex is now slowly bleeding off time to Arkina. I do not think Arkina is going to get deep enough into tire life to start hemorrhaging time due to tire fall off. If Arkina pits now, they'll only have 12 more laps. They could potentially have a short pit stop by just putting less fuel in the tank. And will likely, I think Arkina is going to win this. Arkina is going to be able to come out of pit lane probably about 2 to 3 seconds ahead of Nex. I think this may have broke the back between the two of them, but it's going to break it in Arkina's favor. And I don't see any way that Nex gets him. I think the event is over, at least preliminarily, the event is over. It is going to be Arkina and the NWR team who wins preliminarily. However, again, everyone will get the chance to submit up to 3 penalties that they can ask for the officials to remove from them per stint. So we are looking at 18 penalties, roughly, per driver per stint. Now, for some, they probably won't submit at all. Some will have had clean stints that they won't have to submit any. Some may have had 1 or 2. But the AFZ team has had a significant amount of penalties in all of their stints, so they will definitely be taking maximum advantage of that. And yeah, that gap has opened up 4 seconds in Arkina's favor. The fight is over. The winner overall is going to be NWR Arkina, and the NWR team will win the event overall. The drivers were equal. The cars and the tunes were roughly equal. What came down to it was the gridlock meant that someone had to make some crazy move to break it, and the crazy move was just had no way of working. Both drivers had been pushing their stops out as late as possible. There wasn't a chance for either of them to overcut the other anymore. Undercut was the only reasonable option left, and the undercut just does not work. The undercut is not capable for the GT3 cars here around Silverstone. The undercut does not work here. I don't think we have seen more than 1 time today where the undercut has worked on track. This little bit of a scrap going on here between Landshoes and Leswick. They've been on top of each other for most of the event in that multicolored IARA McLaren and that Lamborghini of Leswick. That was the Lamborghini that won stints 1, 2, and 4, but disconnected in stint 3 and have been absolutely nowhere close to being competitive in stints 5 or 6. So a frustrating derailment by the top Lamborghini team. And yeah, the gap between the top 2 is now 5 seconds and is only going to continue to grow because Nex is going to be dealing with tire fall off and Arkina will not have to worry about that at all. There was just no way, I hate to say it, but after about an hour, it became pretty obvious to those 2 drivers that there was just no way for Nex or Arkina to get away from each other. And as long as they were on top of each other, Arkina would win by default because Nex could not get 1.2 seconds away from Arkina. He got in front of Arkina many times, but he could not pull out a gap of 1.2 seconds. It just was physically not possible because the draft was too strong. Nex did everything right. I think the big thing is that the AFZ team is going to have to very seriously reconsider their drivers in the middle stints, because they bled off a significantly massive amount of time in stint 4. If they did not make that last lap pit stop in stint 4, they would be 20 seconds farther up the road. But that last lap pit stop in stint 4 likely alone is going to be the one thing that will kill that team. Yes, there are other areas where they could make up ground, but 20 seconds is a significant amount. 20 seconds would take this from being a tight fight to a complete, for not a blowout, but a comfortable win. But it is over. So now I just have to figure out a way to stay awake for these last 10, 11 laps, because I have only been gassed up off the back, not even caffeine, just been gassed up off the back of that fight. And now it is over, and I just have to hope that I don't start fading off here. Still waiting for NFL Racer to go ahead and make his final stop. He'd probably make it now and be fine. He'd have 10 laps left. So it'd be a very short fuel tank, and he's opened up a good gap on everyone else. No need to push the issue. PTG Speed is going to come home in what looks like will be 5th position. Yokimbo will be 6th. Figgy Boy will be 7th. And yes, NFL Racer finally comes into the pits. I don't think we're going to see Warrior Knight go a lap down. I think it's only going to be Harry Toofs and RBR Nico who will go a lap down of everyone still on track right now. Okay, I take that back. Warrior Knight might actually go a lap down here. Also, DMS Sleepy might also go a lap down because they still have yet to make their final stop as well, it would appear. Are they going to make it this time? They'll have to make it this time, surely. Excuse me, they got engine damage anyway, so it would be ideal for them to pit earlier rather than later. Saying that, it's not exactly going to help them. They don't have the fuel to make it to the end, so might as well pit this time by. Lolba is now actually closing down on Nex. Is Nex damaged the engine? No? Although he is still way overloaded on fuel, but he has not damaged the engine. It looks like now that he's in clean air, the Chevy just does not have anything. And now he is being caught rapidly by Lolba in the Audi. So the Audi might be able to pull off a top 2 finish, which would be their strongest result thus far. If not for that disconnect that Kimi had in Stint 2, that team could be fighting for a legitimate top 3 overall. Yeah, as long as Arkina hasn't messed up on their fuel strategy or anything like that, this is over. And DMS Sleepy finally making their stop now. So we're going to go ahead and ride on board for a lap with Lolba, as he is the one that is now caught AFZ Nex near the very end here. So for a final time, we'll go to ad break, and when we come back, we'll stay on track to the end of the Silverstone 2,000 kilometers here. We'll be back momentarily. Don't go away. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Silverstone. About 7 laps left. The driver who had been fighting for a win overall, AFZ Next, has completely fallen off a cliff. Jumped onto an undercut strategy, and it has just absolutely gone wrong, and Next is just hemorrhaging time. Has not even been able to keep up with Lolba for second place. So Lolba, in reality, is set to finish second here. The only thing that Next can hope for now is that something catastrophic happens to Arkina. And I'm going to be 100% honest, I think we've only seen like 2 cars with catastrophic damage thus far in the event. There is no way that something catastrophic happens to Arkina. So the NWR team, congratulations on what will be an easy walk-off win, while the AFC team will have a chance to close down a bit on penalties. Nex's lack of pace, complete fall-off here in these final 10 laps, means that they're not going to be close enough to actually take advantage of any time that will be given back to them from penalty removal. So, for all intents and purposes, the fight for silver is over. The fight for just about every position on track is over, really. Penalties also have worked against Nex. Nex is now well over 2 seconds. So, yeah, seems like after pitting early, everything's just kind of come unglued for this car. For the 2-2-3, it honestly probably would have been better for him to stay right on track with Arkina and then try to win the race on Sunday in the steward's room by having penalties removed. Real quickly looking at the changes, Arkina's running where he started. Lolba went from 11th up to 2nd. So incredible turnaround by the Audi. Next is down a spot. NFL Racer went from 8th to 4th. PTG Speed is ranked 5th, which is where he was coming into the event. Yokimbo has dropped from 4th to 6th. Figgy Boy dropped from 3rd to 7th. Leswick is up 1 spot. Land Chaos is down 2. DMS Sleepy went from last up to 10th. Warrior Knight has dropped a position. Harry Tooths and RBR Nico are both up a position, both off the back of the disconnects of Ferrari and Dark Sir. Bruno was not racing in the stint. He was just a lobby host. He does not actually count for anything. We have 13 cars still on track as we are coming down to the final moments here. DMS Sleepy is the next driver who is likely to go a lap down to NWR Arkina, as Arkina just behind him, you can see. Now, Sleepy elected to pit very late, so they won't have to worry about tire fall. Their big problem is that they just do not have competitive lap times in the slightest here. 5 laps left here. Figgy Boy is starting to close back in on Joachimbo just a bit. You can see him up the road. Reminder, Figgy pitted a little bit later than Kimbo. Looking at the penalties between them. Kimbo has over 4 seconds of penalty. Figgy Boy has only half a second, so that would absolutely work out in Figgy's favor here. Might let him steal 6th on track. Also of note, Speed has a little bit less time penalties than NFL racer, but NFL is 7 seconds up the road. The overcut is ridiculously OP today. Just pitting at normal times does not even seem to be good. Just overcut as much as you can seems to be the ideal way to go in these cars tonight at Silverstone. Ironically, when we covered the Silverstone Enduro I covered the Silverstone Enduro for P1R's SEC League several months back, overcut was just a bad idea. Now that had tire progression, tire fall off at I believe 3.5x wear, so everyone had to pit 7 times throughout the event roughly. Some drivers were pitting 8 times even. So in that case, you couldn't really afford to overcut, because yeah, you might overcut and still be better off for like a third of a lap, but you would lose so much time. So the undercut was legitimately the better option then, because the tires were falling off so quickly. But now, because there is really no tire fall off whatsoever, it has been a case where just making your stops as late as possible has been the OP strat. The only reason NFL didn't really get a better run in the prior stint was that he just kept going off circuit in stint 5, but he is going to pull off, by the looks of it, a top 5 here in the final stint, just off the back of excessive overcuts here. The gap between Arkina and Next is now opened up to more than 20 seconds. So, yeah, there's the event is over. Even with post penalties and everything, there's no way that Arkina's team loses the event in silver category now. About 8 minutes left here before the leader will be a little bit longer for most of the rest of the field. DMS Sleepy has gone a lap down at this stage. We're watching as Figgy Boy is trying to close down the gap between himself and Joachimbo to steal 6th place on circuit. Now, Figgy Boy has pretty much already secured 3rd place on track. Joachimbo has pretty much secured 4th. Well, 3rd place on overall. Joachimbo has pretty much secured 4th. And PTG Speed has pretty much secured 5th. As the leader crosses the line, it is now 3 laps left, about 6 minutes for our leader left in the event. Pretty much every position has already been decided overall, I believe, in the total time. The real only potential fight left is this one here, Joachimbo against Figgy Boy, and distance penalties, or time penalties technically. Figgy is the one closing in on Kimbo, because Figgy only has about half a second of penalties, while Kimbo has about 4 seconds. And they are within about 8/10 of each other right now. Down the longest straightaway once more. Figgy is still just out of range of being able to get a good draft off of him. But again, doesn't need to. He just needs to run close enough to nip him off of penalties later. Also, I do not understand why PTG J Caesar is awake watching. While I appreciate him watching, I figure it would be like 3 or 4 in the morning right now, and you would be asleep at the moment. It's definitely more, well, because I know you're a UK native, so yeah, I'm a little more than a little bit surprised that you're actually awake watching this right now at the moment. Sleep is for the weak. Well, I will 100% admit I am weak, and I really enjoy my sleep, so yeah. Well, it looks like we're about to be able to cram what was basically 12 hours worth of enduro into 14 and a half hours at the end of it. Significant amount of delays, but we did make up a little bit of time for stints 5 and 6 at least. This gap continues to slowly shrink down. Again, there's not really anything else up in the air for positioning. NFL is 40 seconds off of Nex, has no chance of catching him, barring Nex having some sort of catastrophic disconnect. Every position is pretty much decided at this stage of the event. It's close enough now to get just a lick of a draft off of that Lambo ahead. So the boys McLaren coming up against the boys Lambo. If Figgy makes this work, it would put him in 6th, and he would still be the second highest of all of the McLarens thus far, because Arkina's a McLaren, Lalba is an Audi, Nex is in the Chevy, NFL is in the Merc, Speed is in the Aston, and Jokimbo is in the Lambo. So we have 6 different manufacturers in the top 6 positions on track right now. Might slim down to just 5 different manufacturers in the top 5 positions, but that is technically, I believe, the most diverse we have had across all 6 stints thus far. Ooh. Figgy had a really bad run going into the 180 sweeper there. He's going to bleed off a chunk of time by doing that. But again, doesn't have to be right on top of Jokimbo. Penalties will get him that position. That's all that really matters. Final lap for our leader, NWR Arkina. Not only your leader in the stint, but is going to be your winner here in the silver category. Already the gold category ended about 9, 10, 11 minutes ago, something like that. This event's been running a little bit behind schedule here in this category, sadly. But it is just about over. Arkina only has about half the track left before it's done. And with a 26-second advantage over Nex, they'll be looking at about 28, 29 seconds total over the AFZ team. There's no way that his team, is going to close up 30 seconds through penalty removals. So, well, over 25 seconds through penalty removals. So this entrant will have won overall. Lalba, this Audi entry has gotten stronger and stronger with each stint. If either they had a stronger stint 1 or they didn't lag out in stint 2, this team would be legitimately fine for a top 3. This has been a fantastic showing by them. All right, as we watch our event winner, NWR Arkina, come out of the final corner, bring it down to the checkered flag, and bring home the win. Lalba will be about 13 seconds back, tucked up behind the BMW. Some lap traffic there. Only the top 9 drivers ended up finishing out the lead lap, but partially that's because of how many fast runners dropped out due to connection issues. And then next we'll have to settle for what will likely be only second best overall, but still they are well ahead of Figgy Boy, so they have secured second, but second is the first loser. Second is going to be very underwhelming when they were within 1.2 seconds going to the final stint. And then it's going to be a long, long wait until we see NFL's lagged out! Oh no, on the final lap! NFL lags out on the very last lap! NFL lags out on the very last lap! I cannot believe that! And that will give PTG Speed 4th place on track, secure him 5th. I cannot believe that NFL just lagged out on the very last lap. The leader had finished. He was only about a minute out. And suddenly it lags out. So this gives PTG Speed 4th on track. Joe Kimbo is 6 seconds back. He will come across 6th because Figgy Boy, while he was behind Kimbo at the line, Figgy Boy had less penalties, so he will clip Kimbo off the back of penalties. And Landshoes will be 7th, and Leswick will be 8th. And that will bring us to the end here. We're going to knock out an ad break, and I'll send invites out to our top finishers and try to send something out to NFL as well. We'll be back momentarily here at Silverstone for hopefully some post-race interviews. Are you able to hear me? Ah, crap. Don't tell me it did this again. Don't tell me it did this again. Well, Xbox seems to have elected to crash the party system on me now. At the very end. Wonderful. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Silverstone. I'm hoping you all can hear me, but my Xbox party system has elected to crash itself again at the very end of this event. This is not the first time it has happened. It's happened multiple times before, where Xbox says that they will not work with the party system anymore. So yeah, the Xbox parties have crashed, and I have no other way to do interviews right now. This normally takes about 20 to 25 minutes to clear up normally. I'm going to try something to maybe try and jerry-rig around something here. Okay, I'm in this party. Let me leave this party. All right.
Hang on.
Tell me it works. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right. Go ahead and include your audio. Normally it takes a lot longer for Xbox to fix its stuff, but I actually fixed its stuff right away this time. Thank goodness.
Sick.
All right. Real quickly, I'm going to go ahead and start with not only our final stint winner, but more than likely our overall event winner in silver category, NWR Akina. Go ahead, include your audio in the Xbox party. That was a very long, prolonged fight, but Overcut is keen, and you were the last driver to make the overcut, winning by a significant margin. What do you have to say about your run out there?
It was pretty close the whole race. The draft and the aero wash on this track is pretty OP, so like I couldn't get away from him and he couldn't get away from me, so we were kind of stuck together until someone made a strategic, well, I couldn't call it a mistake, but a blunder. And just like that, he lost a bunch of time and I had a free air then.
All right, well, it really worked out for you. Did you know that the gap was down to 1.2 seconds coming into this final stint?
I thought it was like 5 seconds, not just 1.5.
Yeah, 1.2 was all it was.
Holy.
Yeah.
To be honest, I was just trying to keep him behind me. I wasn't trying to get away because I knew as long as I was ahead of him, we would probably get the win. So that worked out pretty well, I think.
All right, well, this is over, but I ask this of everyone in these events. What other Forza racing stuff are we likely to see you in over the next few weeks or months?
We have SEC next month, beginning of next month, and then the week after is the Tora 24 hours of Nürburgring. After that, I'm just thinking of taking a break from the game, to be honest.
All right, well, you did a fantastic job out there. It was great to see you perform like that, mate, and we look forward to talking to you again in the future. Have a good time and sleep well because this has got to have been very draining. I hope you have a good night's sleep after that.
Yeah, you too, man.
All right. So that is our winner. I do want to go ahead and talk to a driver who should probably be in the top 5, but lagged out with only about 60 seconds left in the event. NFL racer, go ahead, include your audio. What in the world happened that kicked you out there at the very end?
It's gonna be Alan, and it's voodoo magic, and I'm going to kill him when I see him. We're on the white flag as we're going, and as I'm going through Megats and Beckets, he said, imagine if the NFL lags out, and as I'm going in the sweeping right-hander at the end of the straightaway after Maggots and Beckett's, I lag out. 4 corners to go, and I miss, and I'm probably not gonna, and they said by the form, I'm probably gonna get reducted a lap, so very, very frustrated.
I don't know what else to say, mate. You had, especially here in the nighttime, the extreme overcut. Overcuts were so overpowered, and you were doing more overcuts than anyone outside of Arkina there. That should have gone in your favor. It's honestly frustrating on my end seeing that turn the way it was. Honestly, I feel angry for you. I feel pissed. I'm not even the one driving. I feel pissed with the way that went. I do want to ask, though, what other events are we going to see you in over the next few weeks or months?
It's frustrating, but what can you do? Forza is built from the ground up, as we know. I'm going to be running in the FEC Daytona Prototype Challenge, which you so far a competitor in. That we'll be racing that tomorrow, I believe, at Atlanta, and starting in 7 days from now, this coming spring of the IFEA Trans Am Series Season 2, and I'll be running in that with my team. So hopefully we'll do good there. I believe we won that championship last season, if memory serves correct.
All right. Well, thanks for jumping in and talking with us. It's a shame that we're talking with you as a DNF or not a top 5 finisher, though. All right. Let's go ahead and talk with our actual 4th place finisher in the event, PTG Speed. Speed, go ahead, include your audio, and You know someone's probably going to end up filing a report against you for using weird Florida voodoo magic like that, but you pulled off 4th place after a prolonged knife fight with you and 5 other dudes for a long chunk of the race.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about your run out there?
That's a way to put it.
That was I'm gonna
That's a
give you
good way to put
applause
it.
for that. What a reference! There's some ball knowledge behind that one. Insane. Tell you what, I came in the ring and called you an ugly ass. Yeah. No, the race was good. It was fun to have a fight this time because, man, last stint, I mean, in an endurance race, a boring stint is usually a good stint. But this was, before I knew it was lap 40. I mean, it was nice to get in and have a proper door-to-door fight with multiple people again. Even though I don't know how I didn't get looped completely around. I was sideways probably 4 or 5 times throughout this thing. But it was fun. I'm glad I was able to finish in the top 5. The voodoo magic was very unintentional. It was just an offhanded comment. I went, man, it'd be really funny if he just lagged out, because his car was kind of hitting the boogie woogie for like the back half of that stint, just lagging around. And I'm like, man, it's gonna happen, and it happened, unfortunately, right at the very end. So, I mean, I hope they don't take a full lap away from him. I think they should, at the very least, give him the same race time that I had at the bare minimum. Because I feel like taking a lap away from him for that is kind of brutal.
Yeah, I feel the same. He was within 60 seconds. At least on my screen, he was within 60 seconds, almost exactly. But
oh yeah, he was
full lap
4 turns
2
away.
minutes. That would be 100. Yeah, a full lap is about 120 seconds. So yeah, I would feel half a lap. But irregardless, it is what it is. I asked this of everyone, what other things can we expect to see you in over the next few weeks and months?
Nothing. Seriously, nothing. I mean, life's changed. I've moved since, God, well, the last Enduro I did was Le Mans, I think, for Tora back in June. And since then, I've got a new job. I moved. I've got my own apartment now. And, life's kind of taken the front seat since then. And just, there's nothing really, I don't want to say interesting, but anything where you might see a massive grid available right now on Forza. I don't know how much more endurance racing on Forza I'm going to do with, the NASCAR game is now out. Project Motor Racing looks very promising. Stuff like that. Maybe I'll do one more for Tora Nürburgring simply because I love the Nürburgring. I can't get away from it. But for the most part, I probably won't see me until then. We'll just say the Tora Nürburgring event.
All right, well, we'll keep our eyes open for that then. Thanks for jumping in and talking with us. Good job on bringing home your team to an overall, what we believe should be an overall 5th place result.
And if you need someone to put Devil Magic on something, I might start an Etsy witch account.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna mess with that.
Tora
That stuff ends up
Forza
being-
Racing related only.
All right, one more person I want to reach out and talk to will be Figgy Boy. Figgy, it looks like in the end you should have secured your team a 3rd place result overall in silver category, and you wrap up this stint with a 5th place result. Great job out there. What do you have to say about that final stint today?
I mean, Jesus Christ, that bit, the first 2 stops, me having to keep all of those drivers behind is essentially what kept that podium, because there is everyone behind me at that point, Ferrari, Speed, everyone was so much quicker than me. But the ability to just keep them behind and keep them there managed to, make sure they didn't get too far away. I will admit some of the moves, while I do think they were clean and justified, were a bit borderline, as you might have seen. I do think it was worth it in the end, because to get that sort of result in what is my first Enduro is mental. Especially with a triple stint.
Yeah, no, triple stinting in itself, when this is a 6-hour event and triple stinting is
Yeah.
wild. I have done 6-hour enduros where I have Ironman 6-hour enduros before, and that's fun, but it is bloody exhausting. And I do not envy people who do that when they were not planning to do that. And you said in the interview after Stint 5, you were not planning to do Stint 6 initially, but circumstances changed.
Yeah, it was a bit out of nowhere. I found out the information as I was talking to you. It was a bit like, oh yeah, so I'm really excited to hand the car to. Oh well, so I guess
I'm really excited to hand the car to myself.
Yeah.
Go into the bathroom and you just hold the keys up in front of the bathroom mirror.
Yeah, but I got what I wanted in the end. Yeah, it was mainly an entire carry from Rose. I don't think we would have got a podium without him. And Grumpy's stint was great as well. I can't knock my teammates, they've been brilliant. I'm going to get in my bed and collapse, I think, because it is 5:30 and I am tired.
I will ask one question before you go. What other events are we likely to see you in over the next few weeks or months?
Weekly, I'm usually in very small, chill, less stressful events called Tars and Talk. They're on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and they're quite nice, just chill events to just relax in and get some competitive racing in. But you will hopefully see me for the Nürburgring Torah event. I have got my sights set on that because if I can get a podium in this, I'm gonna go for it in there.
All right, it will be very interesting to see what you can pull off there. Thanks for jumping in and talking with us, mate. And please go ahead and not just sleep, but sleep well. You definitely have earned it after your performances tonight.
Thank you for the intro. Thank you.
All right, and with that in mind, I'll pretty much wrap up our broadcast for VER's Silverstone Enduro in the silver category. Gold ended about 10-15 minutes before this one did, but the silver is over. And with that in mind, the 2,000 kilometers is done. I've been your host for today's broadcast, Insane Leader 13. We have completed the 6th Stint Ironman Challenge, and now I am also going to go right to sleep because my mind is absolutely completely destroyed. Also, congratulations to the Audi Hatsune Miku for defeating breast cancer awareness. They did not defeat breast cancer, they defeated the awareness of breast cancer, so Hatsune Miku can continue to live in complete stupidity and complete ignorance and have no idea of the medical issues that will be infecting her in the future. So, good job on that, I guess. But with that in mind, that will pretty much wrap up our broadcast here. I look forward to seeing some of you in the future. Next month, we will be covering the SEC season finale, which will be at Nürburgring Nordschleife, and then the Torah Enduro, which will be at Nürburgring Nordschleife. But until then, I've been your host. Thank you very much for joining us. Farewell and goodbye, everyone.